The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Naughty Tom Sawyer is always getting into all kinds of scrapes. Things change quickly when Tom and his friends hack witness a murder one night, and then follow an adventurous and bizarre chain of events that transform their fortunes. But how will all this happen? Read about the adventures of the naughtiest boy in Mississippi in this version of Mark Twain's classic book. Adapted especially for little readers, this book captures the true essence of the original story through colorful, amazing illustrations. Tom Sawyer had had a beating from Aunt Polly once again. He had missed school and stolen jam from the kitchen. Tom lived with Aunt Polly, Cousin Mary, and younger brother Sid. He was a very naughty boy, and that day Aunt Polly decided to punish him. As a punishment, Tom was asked to paint the 9-foot-long fence, that too on a Saturday when all children played. So, he was out early in the morning with a paintbrush and a bucket full of paint. He thought of all the fun his friends would have while playing. He also knew that children would make fun of him. Suddenly, a wonderful idea struck him and he started painting the fence with a lot of enthusiasm. Tom's friends came and started teasing him, while Tom had a plan up his sleeve. He said, "How often does a boy get a chance to paint the fence?" Tom's friends were somewhat taken aback by his remark and thought that painting a fence must truly be an enjoyable activity. Everything was going as planned by Tom. Tom's friends painted the fence instead of him, but it was Tom who got into the good books of Aunt Polly. On Monday morning, when Tom was halfway to school, he met the village outcast, Huckleberry. Huckleberry, who wasted his time doing nothing, was greatly admired by children. "Hello, Huckleberry. What are you doing with a dead cat?" said Tom. "Hello, Tom. Would you like to come to the graveyard tonight? I'm going to call the spirits." "I need a dead cat for that," said Huckleberry. Tom readily agreed and headed for his school. Being late for the class, Tom was punished. It was the presence of a new girl called Becky Thatcher in the classroom which lifted Tom's spirits. Tom sketched for her, and she liked them. Just then, Tom felt his ear being twisted. It was his teacher. Tom's ear hurt, but his heart was full of joy for Becky liked his sketches. Later that night, Tom sneaked out of the house to go with Huckleberry to the graveyard. Huck had brought along the dead cat. He went towards the grave and muttered something. "Put the dead cat there, Tom," said Huckleberry. The two boys then hid behind the trees and waited for the spirits to come. Suddenly, they saw 3 figures entering the graveyard. The boys were scared and began to pray. However, soon the boys realized that the 3 figures were humans and not the spirits. The 3 men were Muff Potter, Injun Joe, and Dr. Robinson. As the boys watched, the 3 men got into a fight. Then, in a fit of anger, Injun Joe killed Dr. Robinson. At that moment, the clouds hid the moon and the 2 frightened boys ran back to the village, totally horrified. They realized that they were the only witnesses to the murder and decided to remain quiet. Soon, the entire village came to know about the murder. The 2 children were surprised when they heard that Muff Potter was arrested on the charge of murder. The murder trial opened in the district court. Muff Potter was found guilty of murdering Dr. Robinson. Tom Sawyer decided to help Muff Potter, and so on the day of the verdict, he appeared in the court. There he narrated all that had happened that night. As Muff Potter fell, Injun Joe picked up the knife and stabbed the doctor, finished Tom. However, by then Injun Joe had already fled out of the courtroom window. Muff Potter was released and Tom became famous as a hero. After a few days, Tom thought of going on a treasure hunt. Huckleberry, too, joined him. "Where shall we dig?" "Let's go to the haunted house," suggested Tom. They went to the haunted house and started digging. All of a sudden, Tom and Huck heard some sounds. They hid behind the wall and waited. Two men entered, discussing something very seriously. The boys recognized one among them as Injun John. "Let's hide the money here," said Injun John. But as Injun Joe's friend began digging, Joe opened an old iron box with thousands of dollars inside. Joe noticed the boys' pick and shovel with fresh earth on it. They changed their plans. "We should hide it in number 2 under the cross," suggested Joe. When the two men left, Tom decided to what find number 2 was. The boys concluded that it was a room in either of the two village taverns. They decided to keep an eye on the other fellow. Soon they found what number 2 was. "We should keep a watch," said Tom. Tom and Huckleberry hung around the tavern for a few nights but remained unsuccessful in finding the treasure there. A few days later, Tom was invited for a picnic by Becky Thatcher. He happily joined the other children and they set off for the nearby McDougall's cave. Once they reached there, the children drifted away into the various passages of the cave. While Tom was enjoying with his friends, Huckleberry stayed back in the village and kept a watch on the tavern. Suddenly, Huckleberry saw Injun Joe leaving the tavern with his friend. Huckleberry grabbed the opportunity and followed them. The two men stopped at Widow Douglas's house. "I will take my revenge tonight," said Injun Joe. At once, Huckleberry alerted her neighbors, but they were unsuccessful in catching Injun Joe. The next morning brought the news that Tom and Becky were left behind in the caves. A rescue party was sent for them and 2 days later the children managed to return. The same day, Tom met Huckleberry, who was staying with the widow Douglas. He said, "My friend, the money is not in the number 2. It was in the cave. But don't worry, I saw Injun Joe dead in the cave. Let's get the treasure," cried Huckleberry with joy. That same afternoon, the boys went to the cave. Soon, they found a rock marked with a cross, which Tom had seen on his earlier visit. "I bet the money is under the rock. Let's dig," said Tom. Within minutes, they had found the treasure and went back rolling in wealth. I hope you enjoyed the adventures of Tom Sawyer. See you in the next book. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share.